now, back to the men of the house, Craig and Mitch.
It's 2 o'clock. You're listening to The House with Craig and Mitch, and I've never felt more self-conscious about that sweeper, talking about the men of the house. I don't feel like much of a man right now, Mitchell. Do you? We're joined in the studio by Sid Vicious. Who is this interview brought to us by, Mitchell?
The good folks at Demo's Barbecue. It's the best barbecue in Jonesboro. They're located right across the street from Jonesboro High School. Open from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. I tell you what, try their Big Chop dinner. It's tonight. 1 pound pork chop, 1.5 inches thick, cooked slow, melts in your mouth. So when you think of barbecue, think Demo's 935-6633.
Sid Vicious, a Northeast Arkansas boy who has definitely done good. The PA announcers in the WCW, they used to say that Sid was from wherever he darn well pleases. Well, he's actually from West Memphis, and he's been at the top of the mountain in the professional wrestling profession. WWF World Champion, WCW World Champion, USWA World Champion, the main event at WrestleMania multiple times. I don't know of any other professional wrestler that can make that claim.
Knucklehead of the world all the time.
He's a true international superstar, and he is now going where no other wrestler has ever gone before. Lots of wrestlers, Mitchells, they've starred in movies. As far as I know, Sid is the first one to actually produce one. He's going to talk about that and much, much more today in the house. Sid, welcome to our show.
Guys, thanks for having me.
You bet. Now let's start by talking about your wrestling career. How did you get into this crazy business of professional wrestling?
Well, you'll call it wrestling, and I'll call it wrestling. I'll give you a real quick story about that. When I did my first WrestleMania, going into the interviews, I was saying wrestling a lot, so they had a little sign set for Sid just to say WrestleMania, not wrestling, or no, it couldn't go past wrestling because that Southern deal was there. I learned that a long time ago.
Yes,
but
sir.
now how I got into it was I was, believe it or not, I was working myself into a walk-on scholarship at Arkansas State. I tried out with the Memphis Showboats. It got cut the last cut, and I was just looking for a little college experience. And pretty much it was a shoe-in for a walk-on scholarship there. I met Randy Savage and the guys. They were still in the Memphis territory. This is before they got picked up by the WWF. It was before it really took over. And they would say, "Guy, you're a big guy. You ever thought about wrestling?" I said, "No, I never really thought about it, and haven't watched wrestling since I was in the 4th grade." Mm-hmm. I'll be honest with you, I didn't really was out of touch. And they said, "Man, well, you could make some pretty good money," and the money wasn't comparable at that time to an offensive lineman. That's what I was going to be pretty much tagged as a football player at that point. So I thought about it. I thought, man, of course, you're thinking, child of the way, young. I said, man, I got to take the quickest avenue towards cash, and so that's how it all started right there in Memphis.
Well, I know you were trained by the great Tojo Yamamoto. Tell us, what was it like being trained by Tojo?
Well, the thing is, Tojo, Japanese people are just traditionally they're really strict, and how you gain respect. I guess this is why I like disciplinarians in the business, or people that coach me. I like people to be disciplined, and he was like that. It was tough, and so it was sort of I'm trying to prove myself. I want to be the toughest guy there. And at the end of every wrestling session, training session, there was a deal where we got to our knees and he got that kendo stick and he just whacked us with it until we said we had enough. And so I wanted to take at least one more whack than everyone else. And so that's the type of deal. If you respect a guy, let him whack you with that stick. But it was the foundation for something I didn't know there was something great to come.
Sure. Now, Tojo was known for those knife-edge chops. Did he ever just haul off and just slap you right across the kneecaps? Because that's about where he'd hit you.
That's why I just said he'd ask you to get down to your knees, and that's where he hit you with that. He's not stupid.
There you go. No doubt. We're talking to Sid Vicious. Sid, you became an international superstar in the world of professional wrestling. What would you say, if you had to pick one ultimate highlight of your career, what would you say it is?
I go back to this one, and probably people say, "What are you talking about?" But what it was in my early days in WCW, and I was going in Halloween Havoc to go against Sting for the World Championship. And this is back in the day when there was only 4 pay-per-views a year every 3 months. So I was doing interviews, or told to do interviews. Hey, at that Halloween Havoc, I was going to be the next world champion. And as a bad guy, you're not really supposed to say that, because if you say that and lose, it's not really good for you.
Yep.
If you say it and win, it's one thing. So people like Ric Flair would come in and say, "Hey, man, you're saying the wrong thing." I said, "Well, no." Ole Anderson, who was a disciplinarian, he was my boss at the time. He said, "No, you say this because you're going to be." And so, no, okay. So 3 months goes on. I'm doing these interviews. So we get to the night of the show. This is typically how it happens. It says, "Okay, Sid, you get your heat on Sting. You give him a comeback. You stop him out of the comeback. You throw him through the back door at the UIP Pavilion Center there in Chicago. It's like the old Sportatorium was in Dallas. They used that door for a lot of things. So when he comes back to the ring, he'll be favoring his head. You roll him up, 1, 2, 3, you're the champion." So we did that. I wait for him to come back to the ring. I roll him up, 1, 2, 3. I look down. It's Barry Windham. Now Barry Windham has been gone for 3 months. The rumor was he has fired. He was, had quit, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm thinking, of course, he said, "See you, guy." And I'm like, wow. So no one has told me this, and so I'm sitting there thinking really quick. I'm thinking, well, they'll do TV tomorrow night and say that he won dishonestly, we'll want a rematch or something like that. So I'm, just loving the moment, 21, 22, 23 years old, world champion. And so all of a sudden I hear this, man, I'm popular all of a sudden. And I turn around and Sting's in the ring. The referee's next to me. He grabs the belt out of my hand and says, "Take the splash, 1, 2, 3. Boom, 1, 2, 3. Of course, I didn't know this part either. So I was actually world champion another time there, but it was only for 30 seconds. Reason that was so important to me that night is because I learned some valuable things right there. If you can fool the boys, you fooled the people. So that, to me, was the most magic for me.
Sure.
The most I learned in one night.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, you've had a career full of incredible moments. Main eventing WrestleMania against Hulk Hogan, being in Madison Square Garden, sold out Madison Square Garden, being the WWF Heavyweight Champion. I'm sure there's a lot of times that you were thinking, man, I've come a long way from the farms of Northeast Arkansas.
It's funny, Craig. I farmed not very far from here, Twist, Arkansas. I worked on that farm as a child. Growing up, grew up. I was just lucky. I met one of the people that own it. They put me to work there after baseball season was over. I worked on the farm my whole life, and I was working on the farm when I met Randy Savage and them. That's how I came about this. That's not exaggerated at all. But to go back to Madison Square Garden, that's my blood pressure is usually 110/70. When I was at the Gardens, it was almost at the level they wouldn't let me wrestle, and I didn't know why. I never could. I went into that building like I walked into every other building, but that building. Now that's something there. It's different from saying being a champion for 30 seconds. But having to know that you walked in that building, that puts you in a different level in all other entertainment, sports, whatever you're there. Muhammad Ali's there, Frank Sinatra. You're there.
Yeah.
So you're there.
No doubt about it. You've arrived, man. Unbelievable.
And you have to be at the top of your game too.
Right, of course. And I'm not putting myself over, but I'm main event every night at Madison Square Garden, guys. I don't start off, okay? So that's something else, I can pride myself at.
Sure, no doubt. One of the biggest names ever. I don't know anybody that's been the WWF, WCW, USWA heavyweight champion. I think you're in a class by yourself there. You've wrestled all the greats. Who did you most enjoy working with? Who was the best guy you ever worked with in the ring?
Well, the best, I'd have to say, was Bam Bam Bigelow. And everybody said, why him? This guy was really what we consider in our business as a real ring general. Because you're in a different city every night, a different type of crowd, different type of atmosphere, people vocally different. Like the Northeast wrestling fan is really, really hard. People, you can't force something on them. They're only going to like or dislike what they want to.
Sure, right.
So when you're in different cities and like that, this guy was awesome. He was for a big guy too. You got to realize, 400 pounds. He flew off the top rope. He could pick me up like I was a baby. It just and he was so smooth.
Yeah.
And so underrated.
Sure, Bam Bam, rest his soul. He was in the movie Major Pain.
Yeah.
I think you've undoubtedly met a lot of famous people in your life. Who's like the most famous person you've ever met?
Well, I've met, of course, this hits some of the top guys. Wayne Gretzky. I got an autograph from Dean Smith in a North Carolina annual. Reggie White, Walter Payton, Evander Holyfield. It goes on and on and on. I guess really the one that I thought was the greatest person, of course, he was my favorite football player, would be Walter Payton, a really small guy. I got to ask him a few things, and he really helped me become a better athlete. And maybe that was the most, you know, of course, George Foreman. I could go on and on and on, but Walter Payton was probably the most fun for me.
We're talking to Sid Vicious. He's our special guest here on 103.9.
Oh, I left out one guy, Brandon Wallace.
Brandon Wallace. There you go. Huh?
Cowboy, sleeve stack, Brandon Wallace.
Well, you had to have been embarrassed to be seen with Wallace walking around town with that cowboy hat on. What was up with that?
I don't want to get into this. This is something between him and the pastor, not me.
He says he's going to bring it back.
I don't think so.
Well, they said that about the thong that he was wearing yesterday. So that lasted about 1 day, 6 hours.
That's right. That's right.
Existed in his house.
There's a
Thank
reason.
God for Jonesboro.
there's a reason some things go out of style. That's for sure. Hey, Sid, I'd like to do something with you, and of course, if you don't want to do this, you just tell me no.
As long as it's not kissing me.
It's not. I'm not going to kiss you. I promise you. I promise you.
Go ahead.
I'm going to say wrestling names, big stars. You've worked with all these guys, and just give just a quick word association. First thing comes to your mind whenever you hear these great names of wrestling. We'll start off with Hulk Hogan.
Probably the greatest money drawer of all time.
That's right. And main evented WrestleMania with you.
Yep.
WrestleMania 8.
Yep.
Where was that at?
Indianapolis at the Hoosier Dome in front of about 75,000 people.
75,000 people.
Now, that's a rush. Now, that's what I'm saying. At the UIP Civilian Center in Chicago, we might have 5,000 people. So you're talking 75,000 people. So those are the moments you can't. It's so hard to. Unfortunately, that wasn't a fulfilling night for me.
Yeah.
Things weren't gone. It wasn't a bad night. It was my first big night of all big nights, but it just didn't grab me.
Sure. Right. Sure. How about Ric Flair?
I'm trying to think of the right word for the guy. Just a workhorse. He has. I told a story just yesterday about a guy where it was just about 15 years ago. We were in a dressing room, and this guy named Wayne Bloom from Minneapolis, called the Bloom Brothers, was making fun of him about putting some lotion on his hand. Like, we all use lotion because our skin is dry. He said, "Hey, old man, you using lotion or something like that?" And I never liked the word veteran, and it was passed around him too often. I thought, this guy here, as long as you're productive, you're not a veteran until you retire. So, a productive person in the business.
Sure, no doubt. And night after night, he would work those 60-minute matches.
Hard, yeah.
How about Jerry the King Lawler?
No, I don't get to speak enough about this guy. This guy gave me my break in this business, started me off as Lord Humongous, was just catapulted after that. He's taught me some of the most important things in the world, and that's how to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations. And I guess if you were, one word for him would be underrated.
Underrated. Great. Vince McMahon.
Overrated.
Over?
No, it's just he's a businessman.
Yeah.
Straight businessman, but a little bit overrated.
Yeah. Shawn Michaels.
Perfection.
He's
smooth. He's giving, as well as he's great.
And you were his bodyguard.
Yeah, for a short time.
That's right. That's right. Bret the Hitman Hart.
Tradition. You go to his father, who, to me, these are some of the special moments I got, where when people like Stu Hart came up to me, and we hear this a lot from me to people as low on the totem pole like Brandon Wallace. Hey, you're a good wrestler. You're going to be a great kid. You're going to do this. But when someone like Stu Hart came up to you and grabbed my hand and said, man, you're a man. Boy, that just made me feel good. I'm a man now.
Yeah.
Great, just tradition, Bret Hart.
Did Stu Hart ever stretch you down in the dungeon?
No, he didn't.
That's good. That's good. I heard that was very painful. Kevin Nash.
Maybe the funniest guy I've ever met in my life. He is funny. The funniest guy maybe in wrestling.
Your buddy Scott Hall.
Man, fun.
Fun.
He's a fun guy. No, the thing is, me and Scott go way back now, where I was Lord Humongous for a while there in Continental, run by the Fullers and once then owned by David Woods. His father, Charles Woods, was an entrepreneur there, 99% run for governor, really smart guy. I was doing Lord Humongous, and I was told never to be knocked off my feet because I was so big, and the boss loved me, and I loved that too. Having those special privileges of being favored. And so I remember Scott came to Columbus, Mississippi one night. He said, give me a kick to the gut. So I went to kick to the gut, and his legs swept me. I went down, and people went crazy. I went, hey, you jerk. You're supposed to great way for him to be opportunist.
Yeah, those guys seem like they'd be a blast to hang out with. Kevin Nash and Scott Hall. They seem like a lot of fun.
Well, I'll tell you, this is a true story. A guy named Brad Kerrigan, he was a youth pastor at First Assembly in West Memphis. He begged me to take him backstage at a WCW taping. I said, dude, are you sure? And he said, yeah. I said, again, are you sure? You're going to hear some stuff, dude. And he fit right in. It was pretty funny.
One more name, Stone Cold Steve Austin.
You know, probably changed the business. Just another. He too tradition. He stuck to what worked. He didn't. He wasn't fancy. He just worked hard. Not anything complicated. Pretty much a simple guy, and made things work for a simple guy.
Very successful.
And that might have been why he identified with people too. I mean,
well, of course that did. Of course, I'm not trying to steal any of his spotlight, but what he did is he did only what I did first, and I was the first guy to walk the middle of the road. And that means being a bad guy, good guy. I started that deal, so he came in behind me, and it was just time, and he got a good spot.
Definitely.
Very cool.
Sid, we're going to go to break. When we come back, we're going to talk about this movie. I would like to ask, I know you've been rehabbing the last several years from a broken leg. How is your leg doing?
My leg's great, man. Matter of fact, I'm getting ready for a bodybuilding competition in Tunica for next month.
A bodybuilding competition?
My first one.
Wow.
But what it is I'm 40 now. I'll turn 50 in December, so I'm going to get a head start. So I said 50, and I seen some guys who are 55 since it was like I am an opportunist. I said, I'll be like the young kid on the block. I can beat these guys or something.
No doubt about it. I've been thinking about getting in bodybuilding myself. I might enter that competition. You think I got any chance of winning? Or
if you could qualify in a T-shirt.
I probably should stick to
or a tent.
There you go, man.
There you go.
That's right. Well, when we come back, we got more with Sid, and we're bumping out to some Debbie Gibson music. Wallace requested this. He said you were a big Debbie Gibson fan.
I have every album.
Who knew, man? This is breaking news. Sid Vicious is a big Debbie Gibson fan.
Well, you hit it right on the money then.
That's right. That's right. We got more with Sid Vicious. You're not going to believe what this guy's up to, man. You're not going to believe what Sid Vicious is up to these days. We're going to tell you whenever we come back. You're listening to The House with Craig and Mitch and Sid here on 103.9 The Game. We're talking with Sid Vicious here in The House with Craig and Mitch. And we've got his old walkout song. Sid Vicious, early in his career, he came out to Debbie Gibson, Just Can't Shake Your Love. Do you remember those days, Sid?
That was Brandon's walkout music. Come on, man.
That was Brandon Wallace's walkout music. We are very honored to have Sid Vicious in studio today. Who is bringing this segment with Sid Vicious to the good people of Northeast Arkansas?
Oh, the madness. It's brought to you by Sears. Check out the lawn and garden department. Craftsman lawnmowers, weed eaters, blowers, trimmers, tools, and equipment. Do the job right the first time, and if you do it with the Craftsman. Sears. Life well spent.
We appreciate Sears sponsoring this station. We appreciate them sponsoring this segment. We are joined by legendary WWF wrestling champion Sid Vicious, and he is joined by somebody that I wouldn't really call a legend, and that's Brandon Wallace. Brandon is, however, the greatest wrestling announcer to ever come out of this area. He really is. He's a good wrestling announcer.
It's come to my attention over the last couple of weeks that wrestling organization is now folded.
Yes.
Brandon, thank you. You have killed another territory. It reminds me of a story. Sometimes it takes months or years to kill a town. We said, sometimes it takes like a really bad wrestling match. But usually, a wrestling announcer, it's almost impossible for them to do it.
Yeah.
But he did it.
He made history.
He made history in Jonesboro.
I think I was just so good it intimidated everybody else there. They just thought they couldn't live up to that.
You did. You intimidated the crowd, and they stopped showing up.
Hey, I've got to say this. Somebody called me, and I know, Sid, you were in town Sunday. You went to church with Brandon, and y'all went to eat afterwards. Somebody called me. This is legitimate. And they said, man, Craig, I heard a rumor that Sid Vicious was in town Sunday. Somebody saw him and Eric Bischoff coming out of a restaurant. So they thought you were Eric Bischoff, man.
I don't know if that's...
Is that a compliment or a put down? I don't know.
This has got me in like a dilemma. What's that John Prine song or something like that? Four-way dilemma right here. I'm stuck. I don't know the answer for this.
I think it was a compliment to Eric Bischoff.
Yes, it was. No doubt about it. That's a good answer. Are you serious, Uncle Wally? this is unbelievable. Okay, our show goes all over the world via the internet. We have got Hulk Hogan on line 4. Hulk Hogan wanting to call in and say something to Sid Vicious. Hulkster, welcome to the house.
Well, let me tell you something, Craigster. As you know, brother, Hulk Hogan listens and watches to the house every day, dude.
Yeah.
And he knows you've got Mitch right there, man. And he knows you've got Brandon right there, dude. But he also knows, brother, he knows that you've got Sid Justice. And, brother, Hulk Hogan and Sid Justice have locked horns before, man.
Yes.
And let me tell you something. Hulk Hogan does not want any part of Sid Justice, dude.
No way.
Let me The Hulk Hogan knows, brother. He knows better, man, that there's nobody in the world of professional wrestling or anything that can take the Hulkster, just like Sid did at the Royal Rumble, man, and throw him right out of the ring.
He sure
And then
did.
at WrestleMania, Hulk Hogan dropped the leg on him. And it didn't matter, brother, because nothing was keeping Sid down.
Kicked you out of the
And
leg drop.
The Hulkster had to leave for an entire year before he could even have another match, dude. And whenever the Hulkster came back at WrestleMania 9, brother, I still had a black eye from that match at WrestleMania 9.
He sure did. He sure did. So what you're saying basically is you've got incredible respect for Sid Vicious.
I'll tell you, brother, there's nobody in the ring, and out of the ring either, that's more intimidating than the man known as Sid. And the Hulkster just wanted to call in real quick, brother, before he goes back down and takes another episode on VH1, that he wants you to know that Sid is truly the ruler of the world.
There you go. That's great. Thank you so much, Hulkster, for the call, man.
See, a place like the Game 103.9, that's where you have to tell the truth. That guy, thank you for once being honest in your life.
First time ever, no doubt. All right, hey, let's talk about this movie. This is huge news, man. Sid, we're bringing him in today because he's still wrestling. Matter of fact, he's going to be in Osceola tonight. All of you folks in Osceola, Sid, tell us about the show tonight.
Tonight it's going to be Osceola's been around now for 15 years. To me, it's the pinnacle of all independent wrestling, and that's where we started this documentary. First of all, we started this deal, and I'll talk about tonight later.
Sure.
Of course, a lot of people are listening there in Osceola. But the thing was, with me, I first started this deal. I said, I knew Scott Hall. I saw and talked to him. He had ambitions to be an announcer. He wanted to get out of the wrestling side of it. So I said, you know what? Come up. We'll make a documentary. We'll make a film of it. And maybe we get it out. If someone to see that you're serious about this, maybe be an avenue for you to reach the second part of your career. So I said, we'll get enough footage so I can get a short film and maybe a documentary. Well, then, of course, one thing led to another, and this thing started getting more serious and serious. And then, luck has it, I kept running to, Brandon. He was doing the filming there at Jonesboro at the time. Mm-hmm. I didn't know anything about this stuff. So just one thing led into another, and then so I didn't really think it would get this far. And I started doing my love for film about 10 years or 12 years ago. I did my first independent film. Barry Norman got me into it at his film festival in Dahlonega, Georgia, and I just fell in love with it because it's so much fun. Acting has always been, as far as wrestling, that was just the most favorite part for me, being something in front of the camera, which I really wasn't,
Right.
So, so we got this thing going, and it's just it fell into this deal, and then there's like so many things you get frustrated, and it says, man, I didn't think we're 8 months into this. I think this should be finished. Where's Brandon at this point?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it's not Brandon's fault. It's just it takes you got hundreds of hours on tape, and you have to put it in segments, and then start. So we're getting now. We only have 2 weeks before we're the deadline now. So I was was meeting last Friday to do some final shots with some young kids and ask them some questions. And Wednesday I was in a tanning bed. It came to me an idea to just they wanted a feature like 80 or 90 minutes. I said, we just didn't have the time. So let's do a short documentary movie type of just explosion deal. So we were eating. I met Brandon that evening for supper before the matches. And there on paper we put it together. And then Sunday, of course, I came to church. Me and him sit down and we edited this thing out. And of course, again, we're not for sure into this thing. We get it submitted. We'll finalize the paperwork today. We have to go through some legal stuff with iTunes and buy the music. I've done all that. Now we got to pay the a $40 late fee. That's how close we're not even making the submission part.
Yeah.
But it's been great.
So and Brandon Wallace, who has been your primary filmmaker on this project, Brandon, tell us a little bit about it. What's the name of the film? What's the title? And what's the format of it?
Well, the name of the film is F is for Fun, and I'll let Sid explain that here in a minute, what that means and a deeper meaning. What else did you say?
The format, is it a comedy? Is it a buddy movie? Is it a love story?
Man, it's
a
documentary.
Okay.
Documentary is what we're going for.
I thought it was like a buddy film. You and Sid a buddy film, like y'all are going somewhere.
Well, that's what a lot of people thought after 8 months of us meeting at the Mexican restaurant, where I wasn't eating, buying his food. But no, to start off, again, how it ended was we got together at that deal. We got these kids, and the thing about what we found out after editing last Sunday that, you ask these questions and kids give you honest answers, and so that's what I think is going to make this thing so much different than most things. And why I wanted to do something like this after seeing The Wrestler, the movie, nothing against something like that.
Yeah.
What he was talking about, F stands for fun. F in real wrestling today, we know what F stands for. But in Osceola, we can honestly say this: there is no cussing. There's no cussing allowed in the music. There's no cussing allowed in the microphone. It probably happens once in a while, but it doesn't happen because it's asked not to happen. So I wanted to show somebody somewhere the other side of wrestling, and that being Osceola. And then so, again, like fate has it, I ran into Brandon Wallace again to help me finish this thing because I couldn't have done this by myself.
Sure. So when we see this movie, why would people want to watch this movie? Because to me, this sounds fascinating.
Right.
A wrestling kind of behind-the-scenes documentary. Why would folks like to see this film?
And when we sat down to really talk out where we wanted to go with this film, that's kind of the main question we asked ourselves. And really some of the questions that came up is why did these guys do this? Why do these guys go out and destroy their bodies for the entertainment of other people? Why do these fans give their hard-earned money to come out every week and watch these storylines unfold? I mean, these guys are getting no money.
Right.
These guys are practically working for free.
Yeah.
But they're still destroying themselves in the process. Why in the free world would they ever do something like that?
Sure.
And it goes back to the title. They do it because they have a passion for it. They love it. We asked one of the girls there last at Osceola. She was probably, 10, something like that. We asked her that question. Why do you think these guys do it? And her honest answer was, wrestling is in their blood. It's their passion.
Their passion. And I said, do these guys make money? No, they don't make any money. I said, why you got Friday night. You can stay home and watch SmackDown and pay $5 and come watch these guys here because these guys don't get paid. They work harder. And they do it for their passion. And so when we go back to ask the guys these questions, they give us the same answer as the kids give us.
Wow.
And I think this film is going to be something that you don't have to be a wrestling fan to enjoy.
Sure.
It's going to be something I think everybody can enjoy because it gives, it's not like you're watching WWE Raw.
Right.
You're watching something real. You're watching what's going on all around the nation every Friday, every Saturday night.
Yeah.
And it's happening everywhere. And so I think it's just going to enthrall people into the story of what this is. And they're just going to say, man, I think I want to be a part of that because this is just cool. Wrestling over the last few years has got the stigma of maybe not really being cool. And I think this is going to change some of that for the people that watch it.
And Brandon, I'm not going to try to jinx ourselves, but I think the very same thing, and I'm going to tell you why I think this. Since we started this last year, just in the last 2 months, and I'm under sort of negotiations with a company called Sterling Productions, and the people that own that own the New York Mets. It's like the Pasco family or something like that. Well, they see this now. They're doing the same thing. They hired some people from MTV. They got them all on contract. They're thinking about going publicly with this. What they see the same thing. They see that the value of these independent things that are happening every Friday and Saturday night, the passion for it, and your overhead is down. These places are probably the only places that are really making any money. And it's not, you're only talking maybe $100, but you talking about like WWE. You look at what the building cost them, the rent, the airfare that cost them to get there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And when they only have 2,000 people show up at a building that seats 25,000 people, you do not make money.
Right.
It's kind of a grassroots movement.
Definitely.
Exactly what it is.
Definitely.
And believe it, people like these Pascos, Ponces, I'm not sure about their last names. These people got money, some of the richest people in the world. If they see this, I think that they see something good.
Sure.
And I'm not saying that, they always say that the business, and this wrestling business, changes every 10 years. Mm-hmm. And this could be the change. What it would be, it would have gone full cycle. It would have gone back to the small territory.
Very cool. Well, I can sense y'all's excitement about this project.
Not to cut you off, Craig. I want people to understand this. When we were talking to one of the little girls who says, "Can you tell the difference between a bad guy and a good guy?" And she says, "Yeah, because he comes out the bad door." Or see, you don't see that in WWE. They all come down the same aisle.
That's right.
They all have scripted things they're supposed to say and do. The matches are scripted, and there is no passion.
Right. We were talking. Scott Bowden does a weekly segment on this show. I know Scott's an old friend of yours, and he was talking about that very thing. It's all scripted down to the word. It ain't like the old days whenever the wrestlers spoke from the heart in their promos.
Well, we'll go back to what we talked about the first segment, Craig. Is that if you fool the people, if you fool the boys, you fool the people. Well, and right now you're not fooling anyone.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Well, to me, this is fascinating. Wrestling matches have been likened to magic acts. It's sort of an illusion of violence up there. And to me, some of the most fascinating things in the world is seeing how magicians do their tricks. It sounds like this film is sort of like going backstage at the magic act, getting to see the backstage stuff. A lot of backstage footage in this film, in this documentary.
Yeah, definitely. One of the main parts of the film is watching a regular Friday night at Osceola unfold. When we started, we were just going to look at independent wrestling in general, and as we got to thinking about it more and more, we were like, we don't need to do that. Mm-hmm. We need to focus on one place, Osceola, Arkansas, and see how they do it. And so we take you from setting up the match 2 weeks before all the way through one night at Osceola, bringing in Scott Hall, bringing in Sid Vicious and Lord Humongous and these guys, and along with them, just their normal roster.
Yeah.
And we talk to the guys backstage, and we see them get this thing together and unfold, and it's just really cool.
Oh, fascinating.
Remember,
Wow.
you asked the one guy, said, "Who's your favorite guys?" And he said the Ham Bones. Why did he say the Ham Bones?
He said they reminded him of his dad because he was tough as heck.
Exactly. And these guys are as old as like our grandfathers. And the Ham Bones are great guys. They got, like, we talked to all these guys, and this was so cool about the video, the documentary, is that we asked them, the one guy who's been there in Osceola since the beginning day, 15 years ago, "What's your regular job, Frankie Tucker?" "I'm a steel worker." Well, Brandon asked us, says, "What if they asked you, well, you're going to have to quit wrestling to do this?" He grabbed his eyes, almost like he was in tears. He said, "I have to find another job."
Wow. That's passion. That's passion.
Well, they all had the same answer. If it be a lawn worker or whatever they did,
sure,
they'd find another job.
I know y'all are entering this film in festivals. What if the people listening, and I know there's a lot of them that would love to see this film, Brendan, when can they see it? Where can they see it?
Well, we're hoping that we can allow them to see it at Indie Memphis. This is the first festival we're really going to go after, and it's in October. I think October 11th, that weekend. But they can find out more by Googling Indie Memphis. That's INDIE Memphis.
INDIE Memphis.
You can always check on MySpace, Sid Vicious. Also, we're going to try to figure out how to put a little trailer out without showing the whole thing before it premieres at our first festival. We're going to cross the fingers, and we're going to hope anyone listening over Memphis will give us a little push here.
There you go. There you go. We're going to do everything we can to help you, too, man. This seems like an exciting project, and we'll do our best to get the word out for you. Sid Vicious and Brandon Wallace. Brandon, you asked like you needed something to say something there, man. You got something else to say?
Talk about Osceola tonight.
Yeah, Osceola tomorrow night.
You got to explain a little more about it.
It's a crazy match. This kid there, Rashad, he's a jerk. He thinks he's got everybody in his back pocket, or he's got in everyone's mind. And tonight, Rashad, we've got a surprise for you that's going to people in Osceola will never, ever, ever forget.
Sid, that's coming straight from the man who rules the world right there, Sid Vicious. Sid, thank you for being on our show today. It's been on.